For our listeners, it'd be great if you could share a little bit about Open Markets, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, great place to start. And it's an interesting place to start because when we talk about open markets internally at the moment, I see us in a few different phases. So what I mean by that is the open markets today, the open markets from maybe a few years ago, and the open markets that we see going forward. So I might leave the looking forward piece to maybe later on in the chat, because I think that's a really, really interesting place to go into a bit of detail for your listeners and to talk about what's happening, across the market. But open markets, it's not a startup. We've been around for 12, 13 plus years. And open markets, originally really was helping clients access the markets, open markets. And over time, it became very technology focused. So the first CEO started in Melbourne, built the business from scratch. Another CEO came in about 6 years ago now. Again, very technology focused, very entrepreneurial spirit within the business. So really over that time, we morphed into a fintech stockbroker, for want of a better word. We don't really see ourselves just like that today. We see ourselves in the last 12 months doing much more than just being a fintech stockbroker. So as a stockbroker, we're a clearing member of the exchange, we're a trading member of the exchange, and we help our clients connect to that market and international markets. But in the last year or so, we've really seen some changes that we think are really important to take the business forward, technology focused, in particular looking at wealth management SaaS, and that opens up new conversations with clients that clients want. Okay, so we've now got more product features in the suite than just accessing the market. So portfolio rebalancing, tax engines, performance reporting, workstations, bringing managed funds into the business, bringing fixed income into the business. So much more than that equity-focused broker that we probably had a couple of years ago.
And so when you kind of look at the big problem that you solve, what is it that you kind of identified that has then created this kind of move and evolution of the business?
Well, the new evolution. So let's talk about that for a moment, because this you'll see my face light up. I think this is such a great place to be. So let me maybe ask you a question. I don't know if you trade markets at all, but you've probably got some super. But I don't know, have you placed an order on an equity trade in the last 12 months or so? Yeah, okay. So the way you did that, whether you did it through a business like Open Markets or CMC Markets or interactive brokers, whoever you did it through, the way you did that, whether it's in Australia or America, you ain't going to be doing it like that in 10 years' time, I don't think. And what I mean by that is the massive change that we're seeing at warp speed, onshore and offshore, around token assets and coins, and the way that will change the landscape, not just for broking in this example, but for everything, right, is coming at warp speed. And 10 years, could be 8 years, could be 15, I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you, you're not going to trade an equity in the same way that you did last week, last month, or however you did it. So for a business like us, we've got two pathways here. We could go, well, okay, world's changing, let's just stay in our lane and do what we do. We're pretty good at that, but we might not have a business in 10 years. Or we can look over the fence to what's happening in DeFi that's still evolving, but moving quickly. And that could be regulatory, that could be jurisdictional, that could be operational. Moving quickly, start talking to the people in that industry, whether they're fintechs or technologies or ASIC, whoever it might be, and start to build out that DeFi strategy, that tokenized real world assets, if you like, and how that's going to change what we do today in equities in the near term. And the time frame's really interesting. You've already seen some major, if you think about the world's biggest exchange, NASDAQ, they came out a month ago, we're going to tokenize the exchange. I don't know quite when that's going to happen, but they've come out and said it because they know it's under threat. You see BlackRock, world's biggest asset manager, we're going to tokenize our assets. So world's biggest exchange, world's biggest asset manager, it's coming. So I think for a business like us, we have to look at it because we'd be foolish not to. And in that part of the strategy, which we're still on a bit of fact finding for, because it's complicated and it's moving quickly, and the regulatory environment is following that, but it's challenging for ASIC and I think participants. And I think at some point we're going to run, we will run DeFi and TradFi almost in parallel. Okay, and then at some point, they're going to converge, and maybe at some point that the TradFi will disappear. I'll probably be retired by then, but that's probably how we see it at the moment. Yeah. So we want to be relevant. We look over the fence into that DeFi world, and it, first of all, is truly fascinating. But that is firmly where we believe, relevance for us is going to be. And there's many more things around that. Okay, in digital. So whether that's having your own stable coin, obviously very attractive if you want to be a meaningful participant in what you do there. Having a DAT possibly, all those different aspects to a digital strategy really, really excite us at the moment.
Yeah. And how do you kind of manage because you've obviously got a business to run, you've got people to pay, you've got clients to service. How do you kind of manage the R&D process and then kind of figure out what bets are we going to place?
Well, and also what clients want, because that picture I painted of a TradFi world, which is what we do today, and a DeFi, running in parallel, well, that's great. But if you go to some of our customers now and I go, hey, we're going to move all your assets from how you deal with them today on chess and HIN, and we're just going to move it into a digital world. If I go to our family office clients and suggest that, they're going to put the phone down pretty quick, right? So I guess, you need to have people ready for that.
We've had the ASX kind of challenge where, they made the big announcement of we're going to go on chain, and it never happened. And so there's I guess a level of skepticism.
There's a lot of skepticism, and there's a lot of work to do, again, in the regulatory space. And I'm sure most of your listeners will be familiar with Project Acacia and what's been happening there with some real-time examples of industry participants doing great things in the project. And, that interests us a lot. We've spoken with many of those participants. And to answer your question then on sort of capital and allocation and how do we think about investing into those different parts of what we want to do, we're very fortunate. First of all, we have a long-standing institutional shareholder here that we have a very close day-to-day relationship with, as well as the capital and shareholder relationship. And we've got a really interesting capital markets strategy, let's say, for the next 12 months, which is difficult to go into in detail here for confidentiality reasons, but that is certainly an avenue for capital for us as we think about that DeFi piece, because we have big licenses here. Okay, we're a clearing member of the exchange, we're a trading member of the exchange, we've got very big AFSL, we could do MDA, and so on and so on. But if we want to truly step into that DeFi, we need to upgrade the license. That comes at time and cost. We need non-cash payments for stable coins. We might need market making if we want to create a market in a different ecosystem. Yeah. We'll need a level 2 or level 3 markets license from ASIC. And these things don't come, first of all, quickly, but they require us to invest in talent and tech. And I think, to your question, when we look at some of the tech that we believe we'll need to deliver on that, there's partnerships there, right? So we're not going to go and build a blockchain. That's not what we're going to do. There's some fantastic businesses doing that today. We've just signed an MOU with one of them, the Red Belly Network. I'm sure many of your listeners will know.
Yeah, we had
those guys
on the show earlier this year.
Yeah, fantastic business. And, it's early days, but we see a lot of opportunity with those like-minded leaders in that emerging space here. And it's not emerging now. This has been happening for some time. So I think we trivialize it a little bit when we say emerging, but it's still evolving.
Yeah. One of the developments that we had very recently here in Australia is some final traction, particularly with crypto exchanges and the push now that they're going to have to go down the AFSL route.
Yeah.
Where do you see a platform like, say, OpenMarkets that does have AFSLs, that has all this technology and infrastructure, being able to then move it quickly into that digital asset space and support, say, crypto exchange? Yeah,
it's a great question. I've got a couple of strong views on this, actually. I think the first one is, in a global context, when we talk about regulation and we talk about, so if we look at the digital asset space, so not just crypto coin trading or the crypto coins themselves, or real world assets and tokenization, we've seen some global challenges, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
In big shops and small shops, we've seen fraud, we've seen AML issues, and I could go on and on. We don't need that. I think the industry's matured immensely. So you go now, you were there on Thursday, we go to the digital assets top 50. There are as many investment bankers or ex-investment bankers in the room as there are sort of tech people. And these people, like we would see ourselves, we're coming from a world where we understand AML KYC. We understand client money. We understand custody. We understand how to work with a regulator, how to deal with lawyers and accountants and all those sorts of things. But they're important, right? They're really important. And ASIC want to see, and globally regulators want to see, that the people coming into the industry that are going to be managing millions or billions of money know what they're doing. So I think that maturing over recent times and that acceleration of global regulatory appetite and change, Genius Act, right into what happened in Europe and now Singapore, Hong Kong, and Australia, coming in behind a little bit, but moving in the right direction. We're seeing a maturing of the people in that industry. So we believe, we sit down, when we talk about it at board level, we think we're in a really strong position here because we're not startup. We're not going into it cold, right? We did 200 million in the market yesterday, right? This is a serious business, right? 25 billion a year goes through the pipes here, right? That's a lot of money. That's clients' money. So we know how to deal with that. So when we look at what we want to do in DeFi, we're not going to have 25 billion going through a DeFi in 2 years. That's never going to happen. But we want to have something like that in a few years' time. We want to build it with the right people in a mature and compliant way. So we bring that existing license and skills into that new world, and we build it out accordingly. And you see, we're not the only people doing this, right? There's lots of really good businesses that have an established, Tradfi model, not necessarily broking. It could be payments, it could be whatever, moving into that space. I think that's a great thing for the industry.
So when you kind of look at your competition in the kind of traditional clearing solutions, what differentiates you guys and kind of what you see as being your competitive advantage?
Yeah, well, there's a bit of a challenge here actually in Australia. So this is one of the reasons why, when I said at the beginning that the historic open markets business was this equities fintech stockbroker, and we've started to move beyond that into semi-platform, you could almost call it, rebalancing engines, tax engines, performance reporting, desktops, and so on. And the reason for that is the Australian market in just that sort of clearing is pretty overserviced, right? Australia's got a mature and successful industry in asset management, in corporate finance, banking, all the way through. It's no different in that space. So there's a number of different participants in the industry, each one, got their own strengths and weaknesses like we would have as well. But that creates quite a crowded market. What does that create? Lot price competition. So if you were new looking at this part of the market as a VC, you probably wouldn't enter. It's mature. However, that move out, when we talk to our clients, they want more than just that execution and clearing. They want to deal, same tech stack, one provider, single sign-ons, multiple product opportunity with the same provider without having to switch between different ones. So we see that opportunity going forward. So that's a bit of a differentiator. I'm not sure there are many, if any, that can do portfolio rebalancing straight to market through the broker in the same business, but we can do that. Whilst we do a lot with fintech, we have 3 broad customer channels, of which fintech's just one. So maybe just worth a second on that. So we have fintech as probably our primary channel. So onshore and offshore fintechs accessing markets and other things through us, API first. We have advice professionals. So that's family offices, financial planners, shadow brokers, more traditional advice, and then we have traders, on and offshore traders. So 3 very different categories. We have most business in fintech and advice, and the differently price points. But going to your point in that fintech channel, that's where, yes, we do, because again, if you have a fintech that's built into our APIs for lots of different content, if we can offer other product in the same tech stack, so let's say crypto trading, that's very attractive. We should talk about crypto trading actually, because we don't currently offer that in the product suite. We had it built a couple of years ago. Now everything's moved on since then, so we're getting our fintechs now saying to us, how can you help us in that super world, connect to a crypto exchange for the major coins, right? They tend to not want the specky stuff, and that's of course driven by their demand, right? It's seen increasing appetite and maturity in that sector.
I want to shift the conversation a bit onto yourself and more, I guess, the leadership side and the cultural elements of what you've been kind of building here at OpenMarkets. Now, I know that you came in at a fairly difficult time for the business.
Yeah.
It was a difficult time for the industry as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe share a little bit about kind of what you came into and what you've kind of over this last few years been able to build and kind of create as a culture?
Look, I think the first call. So yes, when I joined, we had a few challenges, and a number of those are public. We had a regulatory issue which we dealt with in record time. Happened before myself and the current leadership team were here. But we just moved through it. I mean, improved and matured the business, and regulators got a job to do. We hadn't done things well. We addressed it quickly, professionally, and we moved on. But despite some of those challenges in that early period, what I was very, very fortunate to walk into was an incredible culture here at OpenMarkets. So what I mean by that is entrepreneurial spirit, motivated and engaged workforce, people just on the journey. Now, as a CEO, often you're trying to build towards that. I kind of inherited it. So that was fantastic. I had a bit of a challenge though. We took staff numbers down from about 105, 110 down to about 50 quite quickly because we didn't have the right balance of skills and experience. So we made a number of changes, and that can have a disastrous impact on culture. And I think from working hard on that, this is not a me thing. This is people within the business. We've been able to maintain that culture, and I think continue to improve it. So bringing people in now as we're moving into a growth phase that embrace that entrepreneurial spirit, that embrace that core values that we have as a business is so important. And I still feel privileged to, we had our town hall in here actually, in this room yesterday. We did a monthly town hall, and it's one of my favorite parts of the month. We have an hour, very open. We take all sorts of questions. We obviously talk on what's happening, strategy, growth, clients, but it's a really open forum, and that gets people engaged, and it's tremendous.
What have you kind of learned about yourself during this period, Dan?
In that 3-year period.
And that baptism of fire.
Baptism of fire. Well, you learn a lot about yourself, I think. And, as a leader, you have to remember things don't always go according to plan. In fact, things rarely go according to plan. So you've got to build that flexibility into yourself, and you've got to not get worried about failing. I think we all know when you look at some of the world's great success stories, Elon Musk springs to mind immediately. He goes forward, got knocked over, came back, went again, got knocked over, came back. You don't normally get it right first time, and I think we've had a bit of that here at OpenMarkets. We've looked at some strategy ideas which we didn't end up moving forward with, but that was the right decision to do. We came back, we regrouped as a board, and we go again. So when I think about that DeFi I talked about, that's been a dissection of the last 6 months, and that does get us really excited. And that one, I think we're not going to come back from. I think.
And what kind of people would you say are successful here? What are the qualities that they tend to show?
Yeah, well, I used the word entrepreneurial a few times, and just thinking about things a bit differently, really important, and more so in some areas than others. Product would be a good place for that. Maybe the back office less so, but we certainly have that here. And I want people here who want to be here. When we do interviews from junior staff to senior leaders, you've got to want to be here, because this isn't like going to work at a big bank where you got your big teams and you're doing all your meetings. This isn't that place. You want to be able to, I use an analogy up on the balcony, down on the dance floor, right?
Yeah.
You need to be, as a leader, up on that balcony, looking down on the dance floor, making those strategic decisions. But we're a small business, so you need to be down on the dance floor sometimes, doing the dance with the rest of the team. And that takes a particular type of person for more senior roles. And if that's not for you, this isn't the place, to be frank. And that's great because it's a two-way thing. And the worst thing is you come into the business expecting something different to what it turns out to be.
So we get some great talent listening to this podcast and watching on YouTube. If people are interested in finding out more about careers, Dan, where's the best place for them to
I'm always happy to, if people want to ping on LinkedIn or similar, we always want to be talking to talent, right? As a leader, you'd be silly not to. I actually frequently have coffees with people who are not necessarily looking for roles, but just having those conversations. And it works both ways. I get a lot of value out of that as well.